Welcome everyone to the work session of the Columbus City Council and Mayor for Thursday, September the 28th, 2023. As you know, we have these meetings each Thursday before our Tuesday council meetings so that we can discuss upcoming issues that we'll be talking about at the council meetings and also give citizens an opportunity to visit with us about topics of concern. So this morning, I'm going to ask Vice Mayor Mickens if he'll open us in prayer. Will you open us in prayer, sir?
Yes, sir. Father God, we come to you right now, Lord, thanking you for this day, this time, and this hour. We ask you to bless us, Father, in these proceedings here this morning. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll go through the agenda. Our first folks up to visit with us today are Eric Smith Ingram with equipment company Third Eye Camera System. If y'all can come to, what's the question?
She wants to know if she can put something on the screen.
Yes, if you can help her.
Can I turn off the Zoom?
Well, who's on the, is anybody zooming in?
Turn it off. You got to put that in. They ain't give me nothing. I'm going to talk to the chief.
Oops. Chico's at a doctor's appointment. She's at the, getting a checkup. She didn't want me to tell anybody. I'm kind of worried about her. It's Chico. I'm talking about her hair.
You did so let us.
Oh, I've already signed.
I signed it.
Oh, you did?
Nobody gonna make you in DC on the outside. Downtown. Yeah. So you got to go to the restaurant.
Well, until I need to go by the ATM.
To sign a birthday card.
Thousand Farmers. Put it up.
Doctor's appointment.
Farmer, definitely on here. Matter of fact, it's 2 blocks from the
Yeah.
White House. Pennsylvania Avenue.
Take that right there. She's sitting in front of me.
You a country boy, they got that cornbread in that skillet. They got corn in it. Put my plug in that little hot. Shoot. That good eating, man.
Hey.
That good eating, man. With them green.
I'll look it up.
Look it up.
Sorry we're late, guys. There was literally a parking lot on 82 heading east, so it really put us behind. So due to some nifty navigation by Mallory here and some insane driving by myself, we ended up going through West Point, coming back down and coming that direction. So we're happy to be here at the time that we did. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff, my name is Eric Smith, and I am a regional sales manager with Ingram Equipment Company. We are a environmental trucking company, and we are dealers for a number of different product lines. Our territorial footprint encompasses Alabama, Florida, Southwest Georgia, and right here in Mississippi as well. And we are not only dealers for those product lines, but we're actually able to service those product lines as well. So we have service locations in Alabama, Florida, and one right here in Columbus, Mississippi. So what we'd like to talk to you about here today is the Third Eye camera system that not only is responsible for video, but it can actually provide benefits through safety and vehicle analytics as well. So Mallory Edwards here is one of our new hires, fresh out of college and eager to learn, and it's been a sponge. So we hired her specifically to be our third eye specialist. So what she's going to do is kind of give you some benefits, some features and benefits of what that service can do for you in your city, and let you know how it could be a benefit for you as well. And of course, we'll be available for questions if need be. We're having some difficulties getting this on the big screen because we don't have the adapter for her laptop. So if she could just sit that right there, and maybe you guys can kind of look it through. But I know it'll be a little bit more difficult that way. But, you know, we have to adapt. Yeah, there we go. Just have to adapt and overcome. So I'll pass the reins on to Mallory and let her kind of discuss some of those features.
So I'm Mallory Edwards. I am the Third Eye associate for this product. And to give you a gist of the camera system as a whole, it is a way to enhance the visibility and protection of your fleets, all while improving the safety, service, and daily operations to manage them as well. So you start out as well at first, and you have this window unit that has a forward-facing and driver-facing camera. And there's you can't see it, but there's a little green button at the bottom there. And anytime in any vehicle, you can outfit the camera system to any sort of fleet that you are interested in possibly putting it on. But you press this green button and it automatically sends you an alert of a video footage 8 seconds before you pressed it and then 7 seconds after. And inside of a user portal, which is accessed on any device that has a web browser, you can go in there and see that video footage to, example, mitigate any senseless lawsuits or claims or exonerate any driver when they're not at fault. And that's just the cameras. There's a radar that is a sensor for the back of a vehicle to make sure that you're not going to run into whatever's behind you. But, so it is in real time. So anything that is happening, you get automatically. You're able to customize these alerts inside of the user portal if you wanted to receive if one of your drivers was was speeding or they're distracted by something inside of the vehicle. The video analytics from the cameras can detect any regulation that you guys would like to implement for your drivers to abide by. And if they're not, you would, and if not, then you would receive an alert of them not abiding by those regulations that you have.
There's several different parameters, guys, that you can use to set, and you can customize that based on what you guys are looking for, whether it's smoking in the vehicle, whether it's no seatbelt, some sort of moving violations, running through stop signs. It'll detect all of that. So you can customize that how you want. There's access to by either one of you guys, so you don't have to necessarily sit behind a computer to access the information. You can access it from your cell phone or whatever media device as well.
So this is a camera sitting in our dash? Is that how this works?
There's one in the window, and then you can add up to 8 cameras on any given vehicle, but the most predominant number that's ideal for the utilization of the system on a larger vehicle would be adding an additional 4 cameras. But you can have anywhere in the range of
So when you were saying I can tell somebody doesn't have their seatbelt, you're talking about a camera sitting in the dash and you can turn around instead of front view, you can rear view and
Right.
see what they're doing actually in the car.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a camera right there in the dash where you can, it's a front and rear facing camera that will detect motion inside the cab as well as what's going on in front of them.
Does it have GIS fencing type of capability where we would know if a vehicle was outside the city or where the vehicle was?
There is geofencing and since it all is in real time, you see the date, time, location of wherever event you are wishing to see is happening at the moment. And you have the capability of live streaming as well. So if something were to be happening and you want to see right then and there what you guys need to be looking at, you have the capability of doing that as well.
On Triangle Waste, yesterday I got a call, someone said that their garbage hadn't been picked up in 2 weeks. And so I called Mary Ann and I was telling her, hey, we need to get this garbage picked up. She sent me back a video that showed me on Monday of this week and Monday of last week, the truck actually passing through this street. There were not garbage cans out. Would this have the same capability?
Yes, so there are different tiers of subscriptions that you would have to subscribe to, but one of those being is a positive service verification. So on a garbage truck, there is a part called an inclinometer that anytime the arm goes up on the vehicle, it automatically takes a stilled image and a video of you adhering to that service. So you would have the date, time, location of them dumping the trash can, but also if it's not out, if it's damaged or blocked, then you can press this red button on the center console called the exception button that will also take a stilled image from every camera of not being able, as to why you weren't able to pick up that.
And Jamie, that's just to kind of piggyback on that, Jamie, that's a perfect example because that camera system that we're describing here is actually utilized by Golden Triangle. And they were able to capture that information with the driver when he sees and I know it doesn't pertain to you guys because you don't do trash collection yourselves, but when that garbage truck passes by a resident and he presses that button, he can say, okay, there's a no trash can here, or it was not in the right location, or whatever the case may be. They can automatically alert that system and let Mary Ann know firsthand, you know, that garbage wasn't there, or the can wasn't there, or whatever the case may be. So it's an excellent tool for that positive service verification that she had mentioned.
Is it a cost per camera, or is it a cost for the subscription service, or both?
It's per truck per month.
Per truck, per month?
Yes, sir.
So there's an installation fee in addition to whatever service you guys choose to subscribe to. And that's, you can kind of tailor-make, you know, whatever you choose and what you choose.
If you get 5 cameras, then it'll be a price. If you get 6 cameras, it might be a price. Or if you get 1 camera, it'll be a price.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
What about, like, in situations where you have to determine liability? Ms. Pat deals a lot with the accidents. Would the cameras be able to show us, you know, real time, you know, what's going on? The rear, is it just the rear camera? How is that done?
Oh,
Every camera is constantly recording in real time as soon as you switch the ignition on in the truck. And say in the case there was an accident and you didn't necessarily get the footage at that moment, you have the capability of going into your user portal and pulling footage from that time that was recording in real time. But in the case that you are running your engine for a set amount of hours, since it is constantly recording, it's kind of like a video camera at a grocery store. So the longer it videos, then you have the shorter time to go back and find that footage. So if something were to happen, I would recommend you immediately go back and pull that footage, and you can download it and keep it for as long as you would like. But anything that gets alerted into your user portal stays for 6 months. So you are capable of going back and getting that, but you would also get an alert in real time of said incidents happening.
So what was the need for the green button?
Well, I mean, actually, I had a customer at one time tell me that they were being followed too close behind, and he couldn't tell if it was out of, he didn't really know why that they were doing that. So he would press that red button, and the green button, and they got the footage that there was an instance happening, and I just wanted you to be aware before it became more of a detrimental issue.
Right, so you can better pinpoint, that particular moment, say if it's a mailbox that was hit or an irate customer or something like that, that operator can push that button immediately and capture that video right there so you can better pinpoint, okay, this is the spot I need to go to in order to retrieve that information. So.
You said a truck, but it can apply to a car too, right?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. You can outfit on any type of vehicle. We, as E Equipment, just put it on our service trucks for mobile service to plow.
Yeah. It's been used for fire departments, emergency responders, like ambulance services. So it can be used for more beyond just garbage trucks. You're talking just plain old service vehicles. We've even had some to put them on tractors. So it can be used for any sort of application.
I'm thinking police car might be good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You said the Golden Triangle Waste have them on their trucks. Does any other service that we have here in Columbus have them? Besides Golden Triangle Waste that you know?
Not at this point in time, I'm not aware of. No, ma'am.
How long you guys been in business?
We've been around 40 plus years. We're based out of Pelham, Alabama, which is about 15 miles south of Birmingham. And we initially got into the garbage business with Howe. So we're the dealers for Howe on the garbage body side. But since then, we've expanded to knuckle boom loaders, grapple loaders, pothole patchers, street sweepers.
As far as PD municipalities, how many of those are you guys with now?
Oh, gosh. 10
In other words,
dozens.
I'll make it simple for you. We're not the first one, right?
No, you're not the first one. No, we can actually provide for you customers who actually have this service, use our vehicles, so we've done a lot of business in Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and Georgia. Yes, sir. So you won't be our maiden voyage.
I'm happy to have a video or an example maybe that they can see before you guys conclude.
Yeah. I can show you guys what it would look like inside of the portal, which is what would look a lot better up on the screen, but we're going to make the best of it.
Oftentimes the operators would feel like those cameras are a bit intrusive, and they would feel as though they don't want to be spied on, so to speak, or monitored. And what we constantly have to tell new clients is that it's for their safety. It's to help litigate issues that may crop up that may not even be their fault, to give them some sort of protection, or proof that they indeed did what they were supposed to do, and maybe the resident or some other person was probably in fault. So one of our main customers, City of Oxford, they have that system, and they have tons of examples where, just to give you an example, there is a rear loader truck driving down the road, and one of the two residents was driving down the road and ended up rear-ending the garbage truck. Well, they jumped out of the vehicles. I guess the driver did not have license or insurance, so they swapped seats and tossing, contraband out the vehicle. And all of this was captured on the rear view camera, so that provided great litigation for that particular situation. So.
Mr. Smith, how large are these cameras? Do they obstruct the view in the...
No, ma'am. You're probably looking at a profile of maybe 5-6 inches or something like that. So it's not a large camera at all.
Now, did I hear you say that once the vehicle start recording?
Yes,
as long as the vehicle is off, what if there's a break-in and someone decided they wanted to take the camera? What do we do about that?
Good question. I don't think there's any.
There's not a Find My Camera app.
Yeah. Other than maybe having a separate camera system monitoring that system, I don't know. But
you better hope wherever the truck was parked, there's surveillance on whatever building is there. Okay.
Excellent question, though.
It is. Never actually been asked that. Okay, so I'll do one of the trucks that are moving at the moment. So in real time, this is, well, where did it go? Moved.
I don't know if you guys necessarily do any of this, but route planning, for that particular application, you can have a breadcrumb trail, and you can literally see where your driver has been for that entire day and kind of see where they're stopped, and, you know, so it's a very neat feature as far as that's concerned, too.
You're actually about to see that.
Yep.
Okay, so the driver is here right there at the, well, hang on, right there at this given moment. You can go back and say, let's go back 4 hours. So that's a really long trail, but this blue line right here, if you were to zoom in, there's little triangles, that's what your breadcrumb trail is. So you can see where they have been, where they're going, and I wish you guys could see it, but these little squares, that's their idle time. So you can see for how long they were stopped. The green is probably or just at a stoplight or so, but the red is probably the most concerning, like why were you stopped for 30 minutes? And then through doing this, you can request the footage and sorry guys. You could press one of the breadcrumb trails and say I wanted to do right there. And then between those 2 points, say one of your drivers was I got rear-ended on 65 at this given area. You can go back and between this red line, highlighted line, you could pull footage of just that, or you can go back and add time, decrease time, and depending on the length of the footage is the amount of time it would take to receive that. Typically, it's up to 2 to 5 minutes to get that footage, which allows you to easily mitigate any claim that you are given.
Can we see the video?
Yeah.
How long is this information stored,
6 months.
the footage? 6
Yes,
months?
if it's automatically alerted into the system, it stays for 6 months. And then if you want to download it yourself, you can keep it for as long as you would like.
But if it's like a patrol car and it operates 24/7 because of shift changes and all that
Right.
happens then.
Right, then
Same thing?
the amount of time that it would take to overwrite really depends on the amount of cameras you have, because each camera is recording every single time. So typically on a emergency service, you would have the window unit and a rear. If you decided to put the 2 on the sides as well, you could do that. But the less cameras you have, the more time you have to go back. Yes, let me the footage.
Seems like there would be something that you could, I understand that 6 months is where it's gonna record, but if we would say, we would like this to be recorded a year, well, you can buy an additional space for this to be stored, kind of thing.
Yeah,
You know, I didn't know if that was an option, but it seems like it might be helpful.
right, understand. I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mallory, I don't know if that's an option to increase the amount of rollover time footage that they could have. Even if they increase their space, I don't think they could do it for the entire year. Is that, am I speaking out of turn here when I say that?
I'm not extremely knowledgeable on the IT side of things, but you can get up to 256 gigabytes. I'm not sure how long that would give you in the span of time, but
right now it gives you about an average of 6 months, but we can certainly look into that and see if that's an option, or if that's an option that may be coming down the line where you could expand to possibly a year's time. Good question, though.
Well, you can pull it up, can you send it to us, so I can send it out to them and they can see?
See that, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much.
In addition to your monthly charge per camera, is there an annual software contract?
There is a contract, I believe you have to sign it out for 5 years. But the subscription is per truck, not per.
So on average, you're looking at about $55 per truck and whatever ancillary services that you decide to put on there. Monthly services, in addition to the 55 per truck, would be positive service verification, which is what, $25, and some other ancillary deals. But again, you just tailor-make that to how whatever you want, whatever you choose as far as those services are concerned. But baseline average price per truck is about $55 per truck.
Y'all keep saying truck, so y'all,
I know, we're
we
truck
already
guys.
have
We're
like
truck
something
people,
in mind or something already, like,
No,
Oh.
truck is, I think that's
We're
just
just
the
truck people. and we're-
overall.
Yeah.
I'm just checking.
They
Vehicle.
public works, like your boom truck.
Okay, now I see what we're getting at. I'm just trying to see what's the,
I understand, that
I
can
got
be,
you.
that can be.
Yeah, we're predominantly truck guys, but for this third eye camera system, we're having to readjust to expand the topic of conversation beyond trucks. So we're
Okay.
talking service vehicles, police cars, and things
One
like
of
that.
one of our drivers has it on his Hyundai, little car, and it works the same as being on a big old truck.
You said 55, but then you threw another 25. What was that for?
Yeah, that's for positive service verification, is that right? Which is picking up stops at, but which wouldn't apply to you guys. That would be something that, most of the garbage guys would use in terms of refuse pickup. So that portion, or that option rather, wouldn't apply to you guys.
Okay.
But you have radar capabilities where if the vehicle is backing up, it'll give you a beep inside the cab and let that person know, hey, I'm backing up too close to something. That's a different kind of service. So there's a litany of different options that you could tag on to the initial $55 per truck.
And the 55 is per vehicle per month.
That is
Do we buy the cameras, or that comes along with the $55?
There's an initial installation fee, and we would get the equipment and then give you guys a quote for the equipment and installation, and then the subscription monthly is,
Okay, so we're gonna have to buy these cameras up front.
yes, sir.
We wanted to do a trial run.
Yes.
Yes, so you are able to do that. We offer a pilot trial run, which is the installation is free of cost, the equipment is free of cost, and the subscription is free of cost for 30 days. And we can extend that time for the pilot as well if you wanted more time to really utilize all of the capabilities that it offers. But you get to try it out. You'll receive data back of of the benefits that it was giving you. You can download reports, put it in an Excel sheet, and see the value that it is bringing to.
But if we chose not to go with it after you've installed it, is there a cost?
No obligation.
No cost at all if we choose not to. So if you have to take your equipment off, no charge.
Correct. Yep.
Yes, that is for if we do it on the pilot on one vehicle. But if you guys were interested in doing the pilot on multiple, then we would charge for an installment, just for the multiple vehicles that we are.
Like 2 boom trucks.
You actually are capable of putting the positive service on a knuckle boom.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We're in the garage and not cranked up, so that'll be fun.
Any other questions at all?
Any other questions, council? All right, thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Thank you for improvising. I'm sorry we did. That's okay. You did a very good job not being able to get it up on the screen like you had wanted. That's not a problem.
She adapted over time.
She did. Okay, council, next on the agenda, we have Mr. Charles King here from the Environmental Protection Agency, who's going to give us just a little update on what's been going on with the Superfund site.
because there's been a lot of, they have the Memphis Town Community Action Group, and there's been a lot of discussion with that Superfund site, with the Creosote and all that stuff like that. Mr. King's been working on that project for umpteen amount of years right about now, so he's very familiar with. So I asked him to just come in because they've been meeting and it's not really been media coverage or people there to get this information out too. So I asked him if he would come to our work session just to give a update on what's been going on in that area.
Good morning, how's everybody doing? I'm Charles King from the Environmental Protection Agency, actually located in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the project manager that's responsible for the investigation and the cleanup of the Superfund site, the Kerr-McGee Superfund site. As indicated, Councilman Beard did ask me to come. Mayor asked me as well before. I'm not going to be up here long, but what I will say is usually every fourth Tuesday there is a meeting over at the Genesis Dream Center, and I don't know the address right off the top of my head. I think it's the old, what's the name of the old, the old Hughes High School, and it's usually fourth Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Usually November and December they don't do it on the fourth week because that runs into Thanksgiving and Christmas. So usually there's a meeting around the first week of December. But that meeting is publicized. I know Pastor Leach has a mailing list that he sends out. If there's anyone who has not been and would like to go, I would highly recommend it. There are a lot of good things that are going on. I would tell you that your mayor has, and Councilman Beard has represented you guys well. I do think there's some information that you guys all could benefit. There's some environmental justice kind of funding that's out, and I don't have a lot of details about that, and I know that's what people probably will want to know about, but that's why I would encourage you to come to the meeting or reach out to Mayor or Councilman Beard who are at the meetings, and they may be able to share some information there. When Councilman Beard asked me to come, he asked me to just give a kind of a site update. Let me ask you guys this. Anybody, how many of you guys know anything about the Superfund process? By show of hands. Okay. So I got a little bit. So what I want to talk about then, I'll try to keep it brief and I'll let you guys ask questions since I kind of don't, trying to pan the audience to kind of see what I want to do. I want to do as brief as I can. The old Kerr-McGee facility, as you guys know, was left in disarray kind of. There was, some people said it was clean, some said not. I mean, got a lot of rumors about that, but we had to do an investigation. And when EPA does an investigation, we break a project up into what we call operable units. You will hear the term operable units or OUs. And the simplified version of what an operable unit is it's just a way for us to manage the site. We can break it up into whatever pieces that it is to make it easier for us to manage. Simplified example is if you were gonna, let's say you were gonna renovate the whole courthouse. Well, it might be difficult to renovate the whole courthouse at one time, and if you're gonna break it up into operable units, you might say we're gonna do all the floors as one operable unit, or we're gonna do the upstairs. I mean, you can break it up whatever way is easiest for you to budget and to manage. That makes sense. I'm trying to give a practical. So at the site, we did the Pine Yard. If you guys know the area, 14th Avenue kind of separates what we call the site. You've got the former main plant on one side, and then the Pine Yard down on the other side, and then we had some residential properties that were part of it. We've developed several operable units. The first one that we addressed as an OU was the Pine Yard, but actually, I guess before we did that, we did a collaborative effort with the city and Columbus Light and Water on the 14th Avenue ditch. So we did the ditch, we did a 7th Avenue ditch, and then there was a connector part ditch. So we did 3 portions of the ditch. We did a Pine Yard that is complete. What we're working on now is the former main plant, which we call operable units 3 and 5, and there will be a proposed plan, which is EPA's document to say, these are the risks that we found. This is what our preferred remedy to address what we found. That will probably come out sometime within the next month and a half, pending no government shutdown. I mean, all that can change everything for us. But we will get a document out indicating what our plans are, or what our preferred plans are to address the site. we'll have a public meeting, and that'll be an opportunity for the local citizens to come, hear the information, ask questions. You can provide some written questions that we'll have to respond to before we issue what we call a record of decision. And a record of decision is just the EPA's official document of assessing the unacceptable risk that was there, developing alternatives to address those risks, and then making a decision. And we worked with the Community Action Group from Columbus. We've worked with the mayors in the past, and we're working with Mayor Gaskin and council members that show up or that provide input. At the end of the day, what I will also say is that in any site, wherever it is, any Superfund site, if the remedy leaves any contamination on site, we are required by our circular law, Superfund law, that says you have to come back and do an inspection with at least every 5 years to make sure that the remedy remains protective. You also, one of the other things that you have to determine is, has the science changed? Did we learn something new about the chemicals that were there? Are they as safe as we thought they were? And if there's been some change in what EPA has determined as far as the science, then we have to make sure that whatever we thought was safe, we have to make sure that it still remains safe. If it's not, then EPA will have to do something to make sure that it is safe. That's the quick version. I'll take.
Is that done? That was
So
remediated and?
And I'm glad you said there is a portion of the pine yard. It's about, I think it's a little over 15 acres that's fully ready for reuse now. There's another portion of the pine yard that we're calling OU4. It'll include the access road. Let me do it this way. If you're standing on 14th Avenue, looking into the pine yard, about middle ways all over to the railroad track, the majority of that is done and remediated. That road, that access road that'll go further back in, there's a church, I think, that owns a piece of that property on the, I don't know the name of the church, but it's over. If you look at that in the pine yard, it's on the back left portion. There's a deeper portion of subsurface soil that we still have to address, that still have to be addressed, and that part will not be available for reuse right now. But there's over 15 acres that's ready for reuse, and I think that's an area that some of the Community Action Group, as well as the mayor and others, are looking at redevelopment options. And I think that is a piece of property that I think would be good for some of the options that they're talking about. But to answer your question, not all of the pine yard, but there's a significant portion of it that is.
And it was stated in some discussions that this land that we are referenced about, if it was given to us, given to the city, at whether or not we pay for it or y'all give it to us, will those every 5-year things from EPA still stay in effect, where you guys still come every 5 years and check that land, or is that now falls on the city since we now are over that land?
Okay. I'm just trying to think. I'm thinking, but that part of the pine yard doesn't have anything. I mean, that doesn't have any elevated contamination on it. That's that land that I talked about, the 15 acres. It's clear. It's ready for reuse. So you won't have that issue. The other part of it, we would still have to do the remediation on it, and anything, even if it was given to you guys, we'd have to make sure that it was protected. But there would be a legal thing worked out with the trust who would be responsible, and the way that works out is the multi-state trust actually is the owner of the land as required by the bankruptcy court. EPA and the state are the beneficiaries, so they can't really make any decisions until they get our approval. And EPA, and I'm not the decision maker, but every conversation that I've heard has been favorable to allowing the trust to work out an agreement with you guys for the land.
So from a professional standpoint, because that's what you're here on, the 15 acres that are cleared, the other acres that are not unclean, like when it rains and different stuff like that, is that not contaminating?
No, sir, it's not. I mean, and no, it's not going back and contaminating that. And we're also, that part that's not clean now will be clean. There will be a remedy for that yet. I mean, there will be a remedy for it. We just hadn't got to that piece yet. Almost like when we talked about renovating the whole courthouse, you do pieces. So the other piece will come and we'll make sure that, I mean, we're not gonna do something that's gonna allow it to be recontaminated. But that was a great question.
So you've seen in a lot of cases though where, 5 years down the road, they come back and say, well, we thought it wasn't.
Usually,
So how do you know for sure?
no. Usually, you come back and you confirm that it remains protected. There are probably some instances. I will give you an example, and this wasn't even a 5-year review. It was related to the chemical dioxin. I think there was cleanup down here around 2011 on a part of the site, and the EPA number for dioxin, I think it was 1,000 part per million with the cleanup number, and that number got reduced to 50 part per million, not based on anything anybody did wrong, but just a change in the agency's understanding of that chemical. And we went back and cleaned properties that were above the 50. So most of the time, 5-year reviews, they just go and they just try to make sure. When you have something that's not protective in a 5-year review, usually it's if some chemical data has changed, and that happens, I mean, it's an agency across the nation, or I'll give another example where maybe you got some kind of a concrete barrier that, and this is a theoretical example, but let's say you got a cap with a top over it, and that top is preventing rainwater from going into some contaminated area. And then over time, tree roots start coming up start growing up through it. So then they would have to maybe get the tree roots out and reseal it. So it's not most times you find out that it remains protected, and if it's not, there are things you can do to ensure that it remains protected. But it's not my experience that most times you find, oh, it's not. If it's not, there has been some change in our understanding of chemicals. And when I say the agency.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
So if it's a change in the chemicals or change in something, then you still can come back 5 years from now and say.
It's possible, and then that's when something has to be done. I mean,
When we were living over there and playing over there, they said it wasn't hurting us then, but it did.
I don't disagree with that. The only thing I can say is, when you said they said it wasn't hurt, I don't know who they were, but all I know is when.
Well, the companies,
So
that was over there.
Yeah, but when the agency, when EPA comes, if there's a change, we try to address the change. And to me, even at this site, when the dioxin number changed, to me that was our government working correctly. We found out different that the chemical was more toxic than we thought it was, and they lowered the cleanup, and we implemented that.
Mr. King, I'm not sure if, I might didn't get it, but I think what Councilman Beard was asking was for the 15 acres that are safe.
Yes, ma'am.
If the city were to take that on as a part of the development that Pastor Leach and others are working towards for the environmental justice money that's
Yes,
out
ma'am.
there. If the city were to then take that on, would EPA still come in every 5 years to evaluate from that point?
So that land, because it's clean to unrestricted use, it doesn't have to be evaluated every 5 years.
So they're not gonna come anymore?
That's correct, but there's no, whether they gave it or not, they'd have to come and look at, let's say, the deep part of Pioneer where there is waste back there, we have to come and look at that. But where the waste was excavated and clean soil is in, then you don't.
There's no need.
Right. There is no need for it. But in any area where waste is left, then yes, the law requires us to come back and assess it every 5 years to ensure that it remains protected.
Mr. King, you said the statement you just made where it's clean, there's no need to go back for evaluation. Now, you have 15 acres that been remediated,
Yes, ma'am.
and the rest that is not. We know these chemicals travel miles underground through water. There's no barrier to keep the unmediated area from crossing over into the portion that you cleaned up. So if you don't have a system where you go back and check, here again, you will have people living, companies in contamination that are getting sick and dying, and you don't know it until 5, 10, 15 years from now. I can't see how you can have a piece of land contaminated, this piece not contaminated, and you're telling me without a barrier, this stuff know not to cross over to the part that you fix. That seems like to me, that's what I hear that you're saying. That whole area over there, and you work with it for years. I attend meeting after meeting over there. I've been over there many times, and it was that we would build, we would put nursery, but we won't put anything for kids on the first floor because you could get contaminated. I can't see the city wanting to even get into a piece of land that has destroyed so many people's lives, and yet there's no way we can guarantee there's not contamination there. It's not directed at you. It just is what it is. We have a large piece of property that has taken away a lot of lives. The values of the homes have just diminished over there. And yet we're standing here today talking about if the city would take on a piece of land that it will later on be a disaster.
I didn't articulate well enough, and I apologize for that. I did tell you that, let's do it. I'm just trying to make examples with what I got. Let's say that this area right here is that deeper area of contamination, and I told you we had to come back and we would inspect it, right? I don't want to make it look like the contamination is a little bit this. I mean, and the clean area is big, but these are two I got working right now. There's a part of Pine Yard that we know that there's some stuff buried deep. Let's assume that this podium is the part that is clean and that I said we don't have to come back and inspect, right? A part of the evaluation of this piece is monitoring system to see if it's spreading in any direction. So I don't have to check here if I'm monitoring to make sure that this is not going here. So my evaluation, or the agency's evaluation of the area that's left in place does include monitoring around to make sure that it's not spreading.
How often do y'all monitor?
Well, while it's being remediated, there's at least quarterly, but I think at one point they were doing monitoring. I mean, monthly monitoring. So the monitoring, and whether you know it or not, groundwater contamination travels. I mean, groundwater in general travels really slow. And what I can do is, by the time we come back for our public meeting, since I know we have these type of questions, I'll have our hydrogeologist that can give you a lot more specifics about how it moves, where we're monitoring, and you're asking the right questions. You want to make sure that you are protected, and EPA is not going to, on purpose, put anybody in a situation where we're not safe.
What is the time frame?
Yes, sir.
What's the time frame? You're saying you got 15 acres set aside now. How much more of them left to be done? And what's the time frame on getting that done?
How about this? And I don't want to sound. I thought I could give a quick briefing. I will take. I mean, that's what he said. I
asked you for an update, but you knew questions were gonna come.
But and I'm not afraid of any of the questions. However, if you guys could get me a list of your questions, I'll be in a better position to respond.
No. What I'm saying is, if you can come up here and tell us that 15 acres is set aside for the city to use, then you ought to be prepared for everything else. If you saying we can use this 15 acre, well, I don't think we need to invest in nothing until this whole site is clear.
Okay, and I'm not saying you have to, sir.
I'm gonna ask a question though.
Yes, sir.
All the houses that's around over there, how do they, clean under the houses? Is that possible?
Is it possible to clean under the house?
Yeah.
It is possible to clean under the house, but let me ask you.
No, I'm just asking like, is it like
So
when they?
it's not something that we
things all
standardly do unless it's a vapor intrusion issue. If it's vapor intrusion, then something would, there are fumes that are coming up. There have been vapor intrusion sampling. The sampling that was conducted in the house, we sampled hundreds of houses, hundreds of properties over there, and the ones that exceeded our risk-based cleanup levels have had remediation. The majority of the homes did not require remediation. You know, and even when you do remediate residential properties, most of them do not require excavation underneath the house. One, because in order to have an unacceptable risk, you got three pathways. You got ingestion, smell it. You got, taste it. You got inhalation, ingestion, and then dermal contact. So we're more likely to get exposed from contamination in the yard through, hands, mouth, nose, but most people you don't contact the soils underneath your house.
Right. But nothing coming up or anything.
If there was some, depending on what the chemicals were, the vapor intrusion, and then if those fumes there, then yes, those are situations where I'm aware of something going underneath the house, but we haven't had that.
But if you got water lines running under the house or running into the house, though, would it be able to get into the water lines? And
We've not seen that. We've not seen that. If you even think about it like this, your water lines are under pressure. Think about your garden hose. You turn the water on in your garden hose. You put a hole in your garden hose, and you push dirt in that with the water on. What's going to happen? The water skeets where out, right? So the chance of getting it in the hose is kind of slim.
Well, Mr. King, I do appreciate you coming, and I just want to say that, I definitely asked you to come for a reason. And the reason was to bring awareness to not only us, but to other people of the stuff that's going on. You know, that is, if not one of the largest environmental dump zones that happen in the state of Mississippi. I think it may be one of the largest. And this has been going on for years and years and years and years and years. And we still, after administration after administration, after this person, that person, don't have a clear plan of what's going on with the cleanup efforts. And then you hear people saying, well, this amount of money was given, $72 million was given for cleanup, of which $52 million has been used, and the property is not even 50% clean. That's the entire project. And then you got people pointing fingers about where the money, well, whoever got the money, wherever the money went, somebody had to cut the check. So some work was done. So what I'm getting at, I played in that water, I played in that dirt, I saw the double-headed tadpoles, I saw all of that stuff stand over there as a child. I have migraines to this day from playing in that stuff, and I don't want me being up here would be a crazy man to allow somebody to say that something is partially clean but not always clean and want us to take ownership of it simply because of the conversations that has been going on. I personally would be a crazy man to say, let's put something over there if we don't 100% know. So no, I was not putting you on the spot. I don't want you to feel like I was putting you on the spot. But I did tell you that I wanted you to come. So
and we can call me.
But I got Jamie to call. Jamie called. Right or wrong.
I asked what, you didn't get.
Did she call you yesterday?
She called me.
Gotcha.
However, you said you gonna tell me what anyway.
Update on the site. But what I'm saying is that it's time for us to start getting to the bottom of what the deadlines that we're gonna do, if we're gonna set, because people in Ward 4 and the city of Columbus have been getting mistreated
Ain't just one.
horribly. That's what I said, the citizens of Columbus also, but especially Ward 4, because it's right there. But anyway, been getting mistreated. We've been missing out on money, which has absolutely nothing to do with you. People in other cities has been getting money and haven't even stayed over here. So this area is near and dear to me. And like I told you and everybody else, before I insert myself in something, I want to make sure that it's a worthy cause for to be inserted in. And you're talking about this government shutdown now. It seems like there's more and more excuses coming of why we would never be able to. I mean, that has nothing to do with it. But this government shutdown, they've been talking about shutting down the government for years. And y'all been over this project for years. Since I was 5 years old, 10 years old, this been going on. That's all I'm saying. So I'm ready to start seeing something. And it has, like I say, like Miss Sister Stewart said, like it has nothing to do with you. That's what I call it, Sister Stewart, I'm sorry. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. But from an EPA standpoint, from a whoever environmental standpoint, it's time for Columbus, Mississippi to get some answers. And we need them. And we deserve them because it's not fair.
I appreciate your comment, and people deserve to get answers. And as you know, I'm here almost every month.
Right.
Talking to the members of the CAG, I encourage you guys to come to the CAG meeting. We're gonna work it out together. As far as money running out, one of the things that, you know, at least as I understand it, and I was not a part of the initial group that decided how much each site was gonna get, but my understanding of it was based on information provided by the Tronox people in terms of what was left, and there was some big complicated formula where each site got a certain percentage, and there are sites like the Carnegie Columbus site that had a shortfall based on what they thought was here and what was actually here. But the EPA, whose job is to make sure that sites get cleaned, even if the Tronox money runs out, as far as the cleanup side, the EPA has to make sure that we leave the site in a manner that will be protective of human health and the environment. So we're not, and we said that from the beginning. And I'm glad you did mention that the lawsuit side, the tort trust, that's totally separate from the EPA cleanup side. I know many of you guys know that, but if I had $1 for everybody that asked me about the cleanup, I mean about the tort suit, you know, and I do think it's a shame that the other group has not come to the city of Columbus. I won't say that, and you know, I think that them not coming has even made it challenging for the group that's here to work, because we're the ones that have to answer the questions or try to answer them, and you know, it's not fair for us to tell the citizens that's not what we do, but that's the honest to God truth. We don't. That's not the part that we do. So I apologize for the inconvenience and all the heartache that you guys have gone through for the other trust that's not represented, that's not showing up.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Yes,
we really appreciate you being here. All right, next on the agenda, we have Mr. Stafford and Mr. Lewis to give us an update on the Probst Park Improvement Procurement Update.
Last council meeting, y'all had asked for an update on, update on what all is going on with the $4.4 million park improvement budget, and actually,
We didn't, y'all didn't.
well, I know y'all Chico, who's not here with the change today, so what that did give us a chance to do, though, was to put together an update, and that's really all we're here to do today. I gave you a few extra things too, and I'll ask Greg to interject, but what we've done is, what you have in front of you, first off, this list here y'all seen before, but we cleaned it up, took the dollars off of it, and this is kind of more of the status update and action plan for each item that's on the list. And so what we've done is sat down and gone through, Greg and I, when I say we, who's going to be the lead responsibility for each item task that's on the overall plan. And so, if you ever have any questions, I'm definitely not gonna read the status to you of all these. I'm gonna give you an update of what I've done, and I asked Greg to do the same with some of his stuff. But every item on here and every park has some form of action moving forward, and obviously has a lot to go. And I know the bond's not done yet, the money's not at the table, but that doesn't mean we can't start planning forward. So one of the things y'all know that we've done, we took bids on the turf and the fencing piece for the upper portion at Probst Park. Those bids right now are being taken under review. Those bids also have been sent to Major League Baseball with a request for all the other items that are field related, whether it be the infield transformation on the baseball to softball, whether it be the fencing for the t-ball, baseball, and softball. All those items have been submitted to Major League Baseball. They have 60 days to respond now that we have those bids in hand. So very last page you had is that bid. Weathers Construction was the low on both the turf and the fence. Y'all had 5 bidders overall. And then the middle page here is just an update. Jamie had asked that to kind of help focus on everything that's going on at Probst. You know, y'all have the master plan that was done, I think it's April of last year. That was about a $25+ million plan, and obviously we've had to refocus that down to parks throughout the city. So this reflects what will be done actually in Probst. So it's kind of easy reference for those. People get confused about what all we're trying to do, so we kind of provided this as a visual reference. So again, just wanted to give this to y'all as a quick update. Obviously moving forward, between the bids that are in hand and negotiating with those contractors, waiting on Major League Baseball for a few of those items to drop. We've also talked to a lighting vendor for all the lights that are going to get upgraded and have their material prices in hand, which are in budget. But we also need to meet with Columbus Light Water because we hope, and a lot of our assumptions in our pricing originally was that as they have in the past, would help with some of the lighting issues. We've sent a list to them of what that means, field by field, that we would need their assistance with. And so, with that said, you know, all the other things, splash pad, playgrounds, Greg is picking out some of the equipment that's going in to upgrade all those facilities. Unfortunately, a lot of those facilities are going to be more than $75,000, so we'll have to go public bid on those, and we'll assist with getting that out. But I would say probably half of the things that we're doing do not require an engineer, and I'm one of those that love to get out of the way when we can do that and move things. Greg's bought scoreboards, bleachers, redone roofs his whole life. In these parks, he doesn't need me to get in the way for stuff like that. So those are some of the things that are moving forward. And Greg, I'll let you kind of speak to that. And what else?
They're the same as the ones that the county is using, right?
Yeah, so the size-wise are the same. They're gonna be turf fields. The spec that was put out there is the same as what the county put out there. So, the spec we put out there, there's about 4 manufacturers that we would consider equal. So we took Field Turf, which is who's our middle of the road. They all have high-end and low-end products, but even their low-end is acceptable. And so with that, what we have bid, there are 3 manufacturers right now that are at the table that are interested. The low bidder being Weathers had a company called Shaw as their contractor at this time, or their turf provider at this time. They're their certified installer. But they're still talking about who there's a third party that would like to talk to them as well that may be able to help. So nonetheless, we haven't moved that ball forward yet. I know the budget for that was $800,000, the bid's at $862. And so we're hoping that additional monies that come from Major League Baseball come to the table will help offset that overrun. So they being the third party and Weathers are still talking. So
I asked that because the council lady DeChico was saying that day at the council meeting that even though the NFL is not using that turf anymore, why are we still going with it? So that was why I asked that.
Let me ask.
It's the same as the county is using, but nobody questions what the county is doing. They only question what the city is doing for some reason.
Correct, and I don't want to get too technical, but y'all have already been talking about dioxins and parts per million and camera stuff all morning, so I guess we'll keep going. But there's a split filament that goes on a field, and what it is, it's joined at the top. And one of the arguments that's going on is that if you can imagine a cleat gets caught in those splits, and it'll break it apart. But what that's there for is stability in the actual field. And so that's what's majority been put in all over the world for that matter. But there's also another field with a monofilament. It's a single strand. It doesn't have that hole in it, and that's what they're trying to go to now with all the fields. And what they do with that one strand is they twist it in a helix on the way up. So that gives it that structural stability to stand up, and also it won't catch a cleat. And so that's what we would hope to try to put in for the park. That would be better at this point. One of the companies that we're talking about, that's talking to Weathers, has that product. Again, they all have that product. They all have a varying cost, and we do feel like it's still going to be within budget. So. But that's what we would try to put in there to go into that concern. It's not, I think, that they're trying to get away from turf altogether. It's trying to get away from that split filament that tends to catch cleats. So
now that you've got an approved bid, we're waiting on MLB. Is that what we're waiting on to break ground? Or, I mean, that's where we're at, is wait to see if we get the additional funds. If
Correct.
not, we'll have to adjust whatever projects we got.
Correct.
Okay, so how long do you think that's, what was your time?
60 days is what they said.
Okay.
Matter of fact, they've already emailed back and said they received the information, and within 60 days, they will respond.
Okay, so nothing will be done within 60 days?
Well, there's already things happening.
Between two different things now. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm looking at Mr. Lewis. I'm saying like y'all in total agreement here. Am I hearing this? Am I looking at this wrong, Mr. Lewis?
My concern is that none of the 4.4 million has been spent, but we've started on some of the projects with the budget money. But my intention is to have the fields ready by the next season. And I think that if the bids had came in not as high, we probably would have been bringing them to you to see if you can get approval. So I'm saying that the sooner that we can move is the sooner that I want to move.
Let me ask you this. I'm just seeing this name popping up all over the place. Explain to me the bid process. Explain to me that process, how it done with
All
the
right.
bidding.
So when we advertise normally in the packet, which is what y'all's current provider is, but we also a lot of times do the dispatch as well, just because it has a broader reach. But then also we put it out to, on our Plan House website. And then there's a state organization that we now put out to this MP-TAP. So those are the ways that the project is put on the streets. Anybody can go view it at any time. So I'll give you an example. For this project, there were probably over 30 contractors that went online and looked at the plans for free, and that could see what they actually are.
So we don't do sealed bids?
Yes, so all these were sealed bids.
But
So,
they're online?
well, that's just the way everybody submits these days. They have if they want to do it in person, they can, but it's a lot easier to do it online, and that's just the way everybody does it these days.
Mr. Jared, Mayor, are y'all involved in these bid openings when they are being sent in?
Yes, I'm there, when they're,
And they seal bids?
yes.
You know, I just have a problem. I just see one name keep popping up all the time. I have a problem with that. Every time I look down here, I see one name getting a contract. That's all I see. For the past few contracts, the job on 15th Street, I see one name got the contract. For the job coming up now, I see one name got the contract.
Well, if it's sealed bid, what's the question?
Well, you don't have to accept it, you can always rebid it. You would like to see a larger group, you know, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Why, I mean, you put it out there and 5, 6 people bid, and one guy says, I can do it cheaper than the rest, isn't that?
Well, I don't see how one guy can do it cheaper than the people that own this stuff.
Why?
He a third party. He a third party now, they a third party. So you got an in-between guy in between them bidding. How he gonna bid lower than the guy that got your stuff?
Mr. Stafford, can we rebid it?
Yes, 100%.
Why would you want to rebid and up your bid?
I can answer that.
I'm trying to.
You are making a decision, how would you know it's up to bid if it rebid?
Because
I
5
look
people
at-
just bid, they took the lowest one.
Well,
The lowest one is not within budget.
I get that, but it was lower than the other 4.
Can you give them the situation where y'all have rebid it? And you remember the one where you saved 90,000 one time?
Yeah, so one of the things that you can do is you can act like a general contractor on your own and save money breaking it down. So for instance, if you have concrete, fencing, and something else on the job, you can break it down by disciplines. That's how we've done a lot of the community centers.
Didn't they come in 600 over? 600,000 over the price, over the bid grade?
Right at
If
600.
that's what, somewhere around 600?
Overall, from the actual budget, it's over about 473,000.
Okay then, so what you saying there, we gonna put the extra 400 in there, or we gonna have to take something out?
That's what the major league is.
Yes.
We're hoping major league gives us the.
But the conversation Greg and I have had is, we have a very nice backstop that we don't have to have, but we want. Do we dumb it down and get a cheaper product? Well, let's wait and see if Major League Baseball will cover the bogey. And Greg's gone out and looked at what's been put at other parks I won't name. And at the end of the day, we've agreed that we would like to have the nicer backstops that we've seen, like we went and saw in Vicksburg, for instance, is what we're looking at right now. And then the turf field, we can get a cheaper turf, but you get what you pay for sometimes. And so that's why we set the bar as a middle of the road turf that's acceptable. So, and again, y'all had competition that came to the table with 3 people, turf providers, and they're all a little different that y'all could live with. But that's why we're not recommending anything on the turf right now, and or the fence contracts, because wait till Major League Baseball does.
If you
Don't wait. What you're hearing from Mr. Lewis, if I get this right, you're saying we can't wait 60 days to get this going and meet the deadline to play on this for next year. We need to get breaking ground today.
If I'm correct, if we don't do anything by November, we won't be able to meet that line.
Correct, but the building contract time is 60 days, so I told him that pretty much Thanksgiving, we have to have a decision, so.
Okay. So we're short this money, and we asked Major League Baseball, will y'all give us this money to offset this? If we go ahead and move forward and say, all right, even if they don't, we're just gonna have to scale back on some playgrounds or some pickleball courts or whatever to eat up this 400,000. Is that, if we move forward, is Major League Baseball going to all of a sudden say, well, we're not giving you anything because you've already moved forward with this project? Are we risking losing that 400,000 by moving forward, I guess is what my question is.
Well,
Jamie?
At this point, like I said, we literally just submitted. And so, I haven't even, saw where they responded back, to us yet. And so, from, my reading, they're probably, if there is anything else needed, of us, they're gonna give me a call and we'll talk about it. So at this point, I can't say that if we, go forward, you know, we will risk that. I don't know at this time.
But you also said we can act as our own general contractor and save some money that way also, right?
Yeah, so my recommendation is if Major League Baseball in 60 days comes back and says, we just need more info, I think at that point in time, if the whole objective is to be playing ball next spring, we reject the bids and re-advertise and break it down. Now, from a field standpoint, I think you're gonna be within the money on the field standpoint because by law, you can negotiate up to 10% of your bid amount, and so you're only $62,000 outside of your budget for the turf. And from what I'm understanding is that Weathers potentially could do a deductive change order to get us back within the money and still get the turf that we want by using another provider. The fence is a bridge too far. I think we're gonna have to retool the fence. So for instance, the outfield fence. So let me tell you what my curiosity was. Columbus Fence is a subcontractor to Weathers on this job. Weathers beat Columbus Fence on the bid. Well, how does that happen? Weathers makes their own block, and so therefore they were able to put the block in at cost, and that's how they were able to beat Columbus Fence, because Columbus Fence doesn't make their own block. So there's little things in a bid process that will put one over the other. Well, okay, let's break out. Let's do a blocking project, and let's do a fencing project, and then let's do a netting project, because netting is also a third party. So there's 3 contractors all of a sudden in this one bid that you could break out and save a GC markup from. So that's an example of how we would retool it. What's that?
We don't have to wait to go ahead and
Correct.
get the prices on some of that stuff and put that in motion, maybe.
Correct.
And if it saves that much money, my question is, why wasn't that done to start with?
Well, you get a lot of this. First off, we would have to manage that, which is a cost, an added cost to you. Traditionally, you want the liability on one contractor because if something goes wrong, let's just say the turf, which has drainage underneath, which has rock underneath, if one thing goes wrong, the turf guy blames the drainage guy, and it wasn't his job to do, or the drainage guy blames the rock guy who he put his drainage in, and so all of a sudden, everybody's doing that and you get nowhere.
And that's what's fixing to happen when we start
It
doing
takes
our
on-
own, is
correct.
we're going.
You take on that liability.
Kind of little litigation and pay you a whole lot more, and nobody's responsible for the
I wouldn't say a
work.
whole lot more, but it's just gonna take
Well,
more time. I mean, I have to manage
Is
3
that fair?
I have to manage 3 contracts instead of 1.
But this also been done in the past, Councilman.
Yeah, so to
The
Greg's,
city have been the owner.
yeah.
I agree, but
It's
there
been
was
done
a
in the past,
reason we
and
did not
had
do
no
that.
problem.
Well,
No
the
problem that I
reason
can
we
think
did
of.
not do that is because you want one man responsible for doing it right and being held responsible for it.
I'll
And
tell
that's
you.
what we're giving up.
Yes.
That's considerable.
And another example we did this on is the amphitheater, broke it down into disciplines. But what Greg, what's that?
Trotter Center also.
Trotter Center, correct. The EMCC is one I gave example to him yesterday that you were talking about earlier, and we had a fencing project that also has a driveway, landscaping, other things, so the drainage associated with it, broke it into 5 contracts, saving them about $150,000, doing that on a $600,000 job. So, so that's about 20%. So at the end of the day, those are the kind of things you can save your markups from a GC when you do that.
And that's counting your work.
Well, yes, with our work in, because we did have an additional fee to manage that. So those are just examples of things.
My thing is, we either rebid it, or we city act as a contractor and try to save some money. Even if we save $100,000 to $150,000, that's money could be put in the park.
Any other questions, council? Thank you, Kevin and Greg. Kevin, can you give us a quick update on the paving process? And then a quick update on the USACE 592 grant.
Maybe we have, last meeting, we have already reviewed sidewalks, manholes, water valves have to be adjusted on the roads that were on y'all's list for wards 1 through 4. We're in Ward 4 right now. 4, 5, and 6 are going to probably take the longest amount of time, but we figure in the next couple of weeks we'll have that looked at. What we're doing is trying to hone in those costs that we just had a placeholder for to begin with. And so we've also sent the original full list that we had to Columbus Light and Water, Atmos Gas, said, hey, tell us if you have anything coming up. Once we pull Gardner, Lindbergh, and Military out, which I talked about taking that off the top, divide it by the 6 wards, you're going to have about $850,000 for construction to put into each ward. So that number is going to change as we continue to look at all the numbers, right? That $1 million was a ballpark, so just what we're seeing right now. So, and
You're saying the estimates are up from when we first got our list?
no, just keep in mind, $1 million also covers soft costs, all the things that we're all in that. I'm talking about raw construction cost. So of that $1 million, you had soft costs that are going to each ward as well, right? So I'm taking everything off the top and telling you raw construction numbers, what you have.
So all the stuff you put in the should we not, like, narrow down our list before you go through the trouble of looking at these roads? Because you're charging us to go out and look at them, right?
So what I'm here today to tell you is I want to go ahead and ride, because some of you have to get me more things that are on, need to go in your ward. Some of you want to go ahead and give me your priority list. We need to go ahead and do that.
I need to know how much money I have for my ward, because I went from $1 million to $600,000. Next month, it'll be
$2.
Kevin, are you saying that they still have the same amount, but these are just the construction costs that are $850,000?
Correct.
Yes.
All the
I
salt.
want to know how much money I can put in asphalt to fix holes in streets.
Yes, ma'am. I understand.
That's the part I want to know.
850 is y'all's construction numbers. We see it right now. That could go
We
up.
have the same amount.
We have the same amount.
But he's saying this is just construction costs.
Construction
You
costs.
still
There's
got
always
the,
soft
what
costs
is it,
in those
1
numbers.
point, but there are other costs that are part of it.
$900,000 worth of soft costs?
No, it's like
The estimate was $1 million apiece, so you took going to 850. That's $150,000 per ward. That's $900,000. That's almost $1 million that just got put in soft costs.
Now, I don't know. I don't know what estimate y'all have that had said $1 million, because I haven't provided one for that. But
When we did the discussion, it was what, six point some million dollars?
6.9.
And if you take 755 off the top, that was the numbers that we was given, then we would have been able to split still.
and that 755 was those 3 streets, right?
Right.
So you haven't discussed any soft costs at all. All those are loaded with soft costs.
So we-
Design,
what is-
oversight, and construction.
So we had $900,000 literally worth of soft costs. That's what I'm asking.
The soft costs are.
That's not
fees
soft to me,
and
that's real hard.
Management fees and what else?
I have to go back and pull everything that we have in there, but it's going to be in that range. So our fees are only around $500,000. 9% is what we've always done for them. So
Any other questions?
No, not today.
Yeah, we gonna go to sleep tonight.
All right, now,
Let's leave on that.
I need to go to work for APAC.
Kevin, can you give us just a quick on the 592 grant?
I can. So back to y'all recall, I'm going to try to do this the same way again. And it's kind of unique that Charles is here today to talk about this, but y'all seen this map before. This is obviously, we talked about the Pine Yard. It's that same area around Brickyard all the way down to 14th. Years ago, I'm going to say about 2010, we tried to get that entire area brought up to speed from a drainage standpoint. We're asking in those dollars about $15 million. If y'all recall, the Corps of Engineers has a program, 592 program, and they brought back to the city a $6 million grant that had to be matched by 25%. At that time, which was in 2012, the city didn't have that amount of money to match, and so at that time we only leveraged about 1.3 million, and that was what did the 14th Avenue project in coordination with the trust. When that project was done, the council at that time approved to reapply for more money in the hopes that y'all would plan to have the match money if it hit at that time. It was about
$3 million in funding request with $1 million match, and it was gonna do a bypass ditch that would take about 200 acres of drainage that comes through that area out of that basin and run it to the Lux on the north side of 82 bypass. That was 10 years ago. That funding request wasn't awarded. My only guess is it's because we had just turned away $5 million. Lo and behold, money's coming out of the federal government now, and they called about 3 or 4 weeks ago and said, hey, you know, we still have this request on our plate. It checks a lot of boxes that we're trying to fund. Can y'all still do this project? And so we got on the line, the mayor and myself, I think Jamie one time got on the line a second time around, but discussed with them and said that project we actually looked into further. There's a 48-inch gravity sewer line Light and Water has that our gravity drainage line would run into, so that would be an obvious block. And so that project's not feasible, but we still have plenty of drainage needs in this basin. And so they said, we would like for you to reapply for the same amount of money, because we've kind of already internally talked about we would like to help the area. We would like to help the basin. And so with that, I said, well, we have plenty of needs. And so what you see before you and what's different on this map that you haven't seen in the past is, first off, I'm going to start the one gap that Charles talked about that we haven't completed is the railroad right-of-way between 14th Avenue and Moss Street. We've restarted that conversation, have the railroad involved, the trust is engaged. They're trying to go through the process of bringing that up to speed. We would propose to use this funding to not clean that ditch, but to actually concrete line it. The money from the trust has somewhat disappeared. They're not willing right now to do that. But the railroad has verbally said that if the money were there, they didn't realize in the past that opportunity was there. They passed it up and that money's gone. This would put money back at the table to do that. Behind this are the estimates that talk about that. So to concrete line that ditch from 14th Avenue to Moss is going to be 2.1 million, and y'all can see how that breaks down. The other piece is the brickyard.
Does that solve that problem? Getting
At
underneath
14,
that railroad track?
correct.
This
Solves that problem. This is the only disconnect from Approach Park all the way up to 14th Avenue. As y'all know, in a heavy rain, 14th goes underwater because of this one issue. So that drainage area, concern number 2 you see there, would be the first priority at 2.2, but you haven't spent the $4 million yet. So the other piece of that was the Brickyard detention pond that's up to the north. We've talked about that. The problem is there, you start to put that pond in, and then also the ditches to and from need to be concrete lined, because Public Works is continually trying to keep those up to speed. The last time I came before y'all, I presented this same area from a cleaning standpoint. Now what I'm bringing you is, you see the red lines on here, we would propose to potentially concrete line those ditches, and those are the other costs on the back. So the concrete lining of the ditches is 3.1 million and change, and then you have the building of the detention pond at about 500,000. You add all that together, the 2 charts at the very bottom on the very back to kind of tell you the difference. So again, you see about 3.9 million roughly. That would be a total project budget if 592 funds come to fruition. The Corps takes 150,000 off the top. The reason they do that, they do all the environmental in-house, so that's their cost to do that. So the rest of it will go toward the project. So 1, the city would need $1 million to put toward that match. 2, you have more project than you have need, but the good thing is y'all's ARPA money that y'all have been awarded 50-50 match from the state can also be used in these projects. So when you run out of money on the 592, y'all also use the ARPA, or vice versa. If you run out of money in ARPA, you can use the 592 to supplant that. So I say all that to say, they said that they do have their application process going on right now and would like for the city to resubmit in this area. And so those are the 2 main projects we saw that would benefit the area most, that would stretch within that funding. And so, again, not today, but with y'all's approval, we would resubmit that application to them with that scope in mind.
Question.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference from this and what we've already approved?
The old stuff, one, y'all didn't approve anything, but I showed you what the cost to clean it only. Remember, it was about $375,000. I'm going from my.
So what did we approve for that?
We haven't. So what y'all approved was the ARPA submission for the match to do this area. That's what y'all have approved.
So you're asking for us to approve for you to apply for this grant?
Correct.
Is that something we have to wait to Tuesday, or can we do it right now?
Well, it's up to the council. Would y'all like to look at it further before we vote?
All
Yes.
we're approving is for him to apply for a grant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve for Mr. Stafford to apply for this grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hands. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
Now, the last thing that we're going to look at is the ARPA funding match update. and Jim, and Jeff, we met with, Chris, was it Chris we met with? That, from Wagner that did the, that put our, submission in and got the latest information on, how this would, if we move forward with this, how we should go about doing it. So, this is a summary of what was submitted to the state, which they have approved. It includes the $3 million that the city set aside and the $450 that the county had with it. And so it's a total of available funds of $8.9 million if we decide to accept the match, which you can see the two projects that they listed. When they submitted this documentation, the wording is such that it gives you some flexibility on what areas you target for this type of work. It just needs to be this type, am I saying that right, Jeff? It needs to be this type of work to be able to get the match. But in other words, looking at what Kevin has said here, when we submitted for the matching funds, it was not as detailed as a specific area. It just references the fact that it is, one, an area that needs watershed work. It is an area that is considered minority area, and they're looking at areas that have not received this type of support in the past. So, Jim, what is the next steps if the city is to move forward on receiving this match?
So the next step is that we have to start again by selecting an engineering firm. And
To actually do the work, and you have to make sure that there are minorities that are included in the process.
yeah, we have to do, the selection process has to include minority and women-owned businesses. It's a professional procurement rather than a product. So the professional RFP that we would put out would be probably very similar to what was put out originally to find an engineer for the needs assessment that Wagner put together for us. We just need to make sure that we distribute it properly. It needs to be advertised for 30 days. And we need to follow all of the guidelines. I've been through, this is the guidelines from Horn, which is the firm that is kind of babysitting the ARPA money for the state of Mississippi. And so we just need to make sure that when we put the RFP out, if you approve putting that RFP out, that we follow all of the guidelines, so none of the match money, so since it's federal funds, we don't want any of it to be clawed back should they come back and audit the project. So we need to make sure that we're following all the procurement rules correctly. So the next step would be then to put out an RFP to identify the engineer for the project.
So, I know it doesn't identify, loosely identify some areas. Can this money be used to clean the ditches as well? Would that be part of this match?
Let me read, this is the description they put in for the match. It says, providing adequately sized drainage infrastructure in underserved areas to mitigate flooding and drainage issues potentially attracts commercial, residential, and industrial occupants to the area. The capital outlay of upgrading infrastructure that is older than the prescribed life cycle will offset an annual maintenance cost for keeping systems functional. The addition of regional detention will allow potential commercial developers to avoid singular cost of installation, thus making the area more amenable for future development efforts. Eliminating flooding in this area will give businesses the confidence to reinvest in their property by improving their buildings and development into new buildings. One of the ways that you get these matches, and then you also get the potential funding that we're asking for is in DC, is to show that it's correcting long-term issues that have been dealing primarily in underserved areas. So whereas I think you can do some cleaning, I think they primarily are wanting you to use this money to do the infrastructure issues that will correct the long-term problems that have been there for so long.
Well, I wanna know for sure, because we're saying we think, so that was why I asked for an update from, the ARPA money and where our plans were on what we wanted to do. So I would like for them to come here and ask, so we can ask them questions before we make a decision on what we wanna do.
And who makes that decision? Who would tell us a definitive, yes, you can?
Well, I assume it would be the MDEQ, which is providing the match money, because they're the ones that are going to define whether.
Okay, so who asks them if we can clean ditches and get matched? Who
So
in this
Kevin,
room-
you're here and you've been dealing with that. I mean, I know, you can answer the question, I'm pretty sure. So can you answer that question for us?
Yes, sir, it can be used for cleaning ditches to improve, obviously, the maintenance and state of the ditch for drainage purposes.
So we can still get the, the match out of this with that? Okay.
Because a lot of the ditches we have in some of the wards, it's water that drain in homes that just need cupboards and ditch cleaning
Right.
that we can't afford to do. And that's why I keep saying we can use the opera money to do that.
And still get this match?
That's what it's for, undeveloped areas.
All right, y'all gonna get the mayor all fired up here. We better leave. We better leave on a good note.
The mayor hasn't said a word. I believe it's the council that, and I don't think you
So
called
moved.
anybody down.
We better get out of here before we.
I didn't call anybody anything.
All right. Are we through, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. No, I said you called me down last week for getting loud, but you let everybody down here get loud.
They didn't get loud. Their tone was nowhere near yours. Their tone was nowhere near yours. We ain't gotta go there.
Motion, please.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.